And all of a sudden, while she was just about getting ready to leave, one of the chairs came down off the tables. And she's like, William, cut it out. I don't have time to play. William was more of not a mischievous ghost. He was more of a prankster,
Yeah.
nothing malevolent, mind you, just more of a prankster. So she said, William, hey, cut it out. We'll play later, please. And as soon as she said that, this chair that he took down slid all the way across the bar and stopped at a window right out where she could see outside. Now it's dark outside because she's getting ready to go home. And when she looks outside, she sees a man standing outside with a knife, ready to rob her as soon as she comes outside. Oh. So he's credited with saving her life.
Get ready for another episode of Spotlight Houston, where we shine a light on the coolest people, places, and events around Greater Houston. This week, we're diving into the spooky side of the city with U.S. Ghost Adventures. Our guest is Jeff Watts, professor by day and ghost tour guide by night. This is episode 110, airing just in time for Halloween on October 28, 2024. Spotlight Houston is brought to you by Story Zone Media. And now, here's your host, the always fabulous Blanca Quezada.
I don't know about you, but I can't wait for Halloween and the Day of the Dead. All the colorful festivities and honoring our ancestors. I think it's going to be wonderful, especially here in Houston, because there's so many different areas that are celebrating these festivities. So I thought this year it would be very interesting to find out about Houston's ghostly residents, which I have found out that there are many. And I've heard that the city has several locations where we can maybe hear, feel, or see ghostly apparitions. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know if that's true or not. So I've invited Jeff Watts, who's a professor by day and a ghost tour extraordinaire guide by night. And he's with us to tell us all about what's happening with all our Houston ghostly residents. And he's also with U.S. Ghost Adventures. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Again, I'm very grateful for the invitation. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's great to have you here because I can't wait to hear all your stories. And I'm sure they're going to be fun, but scary at the same time, right?
Yeah. There's a couple of stops on the tour that are enough to really, I can tell you, just sometimes when I even tell the stories, I get a chill up my spine. Okay.
Oh, wow.
There's 3 stops I can think of that are on the tour that are particularly intriguing. The first stop was at today it's a bar, but this particular location has been everything from a bakery back in the Civil War day to it was a Pony Express stop and a number of other things over the years. It's the oldest commercial building in operation in Houston. And they used to hold seances here, which is one reason that we believe the place is haunted. And most of the paranormal activity is confined to the second floor of this particular bar, but they generally, due to violations of the Houston Fire Code, they have the second floor placed off limits for the most part. But occasionally I do see people up there. There is a terrace where people can walk out on the second floor and kind of look around, but maybe about one time out of about 10, I'll see people walking out there when I do a tour. But that was just the stories that I've heard and that we tell during the tour are just enough to really, again, find very intriguing, if some people might find even a little scary. One gentleman who is a frequent patron there at the bar, he went upstairs one day. He wanted to sneak up there because he heard the place was haunted. And so he wanted to see what it was all about. So he goes up there and he's looking around, and it's just an empty room. There's nothing going on. Okay, so he sees a sewing kit sitting on the floor. This is like a little metal sewing kit, something kind of like one of those little Danish cookie tins you might see at Walmart when somebody's mother or grandmother is using it as a sewing kit. So he sees this sitting on the floor. So he turns around, picks it up, puts it on the table, and he's still like looking around. He's ready to come back downstairs because he's not supposed to be up there. And so he turns around to leave, and all of a sudden that sewing kit flies off the table all on its own.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now, a couple of ghosts have made their presence known there. Also, there is a lady If there is a woman who's attractive, she's been known to shove attractive women or pinch them or do something else to let them know that her presence is known. It turns out that she owned a boarding house not too far away from that location. Although she isn't specifically tied to that location, we believe she's decided to call it home because the building still looks the same. And for the most part, where the boarding house she owned was very close to there, so she probably decided to call that home because it still looks the same. There's another ghost that has made his presence known there that we believe to be an old bartender. And he's been known to make his presence known when his last call. An apparition of him has been known to show up in one of the windows of this bar. So people have reported that happening on occasion.
We don't know them by name or what year or anything about them?
The lady who likes to push people, her name is Patricia Mann. And I cannot, off the top of my head, recall the name of the person who was the bartender that's been known to frequent. But I want to say his name was, please don't hold me to this, I won't say Robert, but he's been known to appear in a window when it's time for last call.
Yeah. Well, before we get into all your other great stories, I want to find out how you became interested in the paranormal. Did you have a personal experience?
My wife told me this is something I should look at doing. We stayed at the Muertos shortly after we got married. That is like one of the most haunted places in North America. It is an old slave plantation, and it's been on all the ghost TV shows and all the investigative type ghost shows. They all go in there and set up and done investigations, and I sort of became
That's
intrigued.
The one that's in Baton Rouge, right?
Yes, it's right outside of Baton Rouge.
Not too far from Houston.
No, not too far. Like I said, we went there and made a weekend of it one time, and we didn't spend the night in the main building. They eventually built up some satellite buildings around the main building that people can spend the night in if they choose to. They're still on the grounds. And one thing that's odd that did happen there that really kind of piqued my interest is we went outside during the evening time and we were taking pictures, and it was a clear day, and my wife took a picture of one of us took a picture, and it's like there was 3 lightning bolts coming down from the sky is the best way I could describe it. And I could get that picture to you later if you'd like to include it in this podcast later. Another story I wanted to share with you is we were talking to somebody there who worked there, and they said that Oprah was about to have a show there. And so she sent one of her production assistants to go out and scout the scene. And this guy was like being a little macho, and he's like, yeah, man, put me in the scariest room you got. And they're like, be careful what you ask for. Bring it on. And they're like, okay. So they put him in the scariest room they had. And I think the people there said he was gone by like 10 or 10:30. He had enough.
Oh my goodness. What was it? What were his experiences?
He didn't say. He just had enough and he was gone.
I think I would have done the same thing too.
I probably would have too.
So where does the tour begin here in Houston?
The tour begins at a Market Square, which is right near the intersection of Travis and Congress. That's where the tour starts. It's a city park. The park takes up the entire block.
Okay. So the tour is just around Market Square, or do you go?
No, the tour takes the basic tour is about 3/4 of a mile. And there's an extended tour that's just a little bit longer, about 1.25 miles. That has the extended tour has 4 more stops.
And so which buildings do you go to, or bars, or that have these?
We talked about La Corral. That's one that's right across the street from Market Square. There's the Donnelly family crypt. They don't have bodies there anymore, but we talk about some paranormal activity that's happened there. And other people.
Where is that at? It's
closer to the Post, which used to be it's called the Post today, but the old post office. It's closer there, right as you're going near Interstate 10 by Louisiana. Yeah. And we don't actually go down there because it's like right next to the Buffalo Bio, so we kind of look at it.
It's pretty far.
Yeah. Well, it's not far. It's just you have to go down some steps, and it's a little dangerous, and so we just. You can see it from above, or where we're at in like Louisiana, and I can't remember the cross. I want to say Congress or Franklin. Yes, Franklin. Pardon me, Franklin.
And so, what about the other buildings that are there?
Well, there's another building right after that used to be the Magnolia Bar. The reason they called it the Magnolia Bar is there was a brewery there that was known. It was very widely revered and respected in its day. And they would go to Belgium every year and compete with all the breweries from around the world. And out of 3,000 or 4,000 breweries that were competed around the world, they placed. And I would respectfully submit, if anybody's getting anything more than a footnote out of 3,000 or 4,000, they are definitely holding their own. What's really interesting about this place, this is probably one of the more interesting stops on the tour, in my opinion. There's a friendly ghost there that's taken up residence. There is a lady by the name of Nancy who was a bartender there, and we believe that William decided to take up residence there. We don't actually know how William ended up being there, but we've got enough information to kind of paint a mosaic. And from what we can gather, he worked at the Magnolia Brewery when it was in operation. And tragically, he died while he was working there, and he was crushed by a barrel of, we're assuming, beer. We don't actually know that. And so the Magnolia Bar came up a number of years later, and so it had the same name, same general location, so he decided to call it home. And there have been, matter of fact, while I was studying the script for this position, there was a picture of him having his, like this little amorphous blob having his arm around somebody after this person said he didn't believe in ghosts that was taken inside this bar.
Wow.
Another
Is
thing
the person William?
That was William. Again, the reason we know his name is William, there's a lady who worked there by the name of Kathy, and you may know people who are more in tune with the paranormal than others. Well, that's Kathy. Okay. And she just kind of got a sense there was a presence there, and her and William kind of developed a friendship over the years. And she just kind of started throwing out names, and he seemed to respond to William. And there was a song that anytime he would make sure a song played on the jukebox was called Kathy's Waltz. He would try to serenade her anytime she was working. And he would always kind of watch out for her. One thing I think that is particularly that gets a lot of people's attention, I'm thinking the third stop on the tour, is one night Kathy was working late and she worked a double. And she had little kids at home, and she had to get home and take care of them and get them ready to go to school the next day. And so she was cleaning up the bar, making sure everything was ready before she went home for the evening. And so she was going around, she was sweeping and mopping underneath all the tables. She had the chairs up on top of all the tables. And all of a sudden, while she was just about getting ready to leave, one of the chairs came down off the tables. And she's like, William, cut it out. I don't have time to play. William was more of not a mischievous ghost. He was more of a prankster. Nothing malevolent, mind you, just more of a prankster. So she said, William, hey, cut it out. We'll play later, please. And as soon as she said that, this chair that he took down slid all the way across the bar and stopped at a window right out where she could see outside. Now it's dark outside because she's getting ready to go home. And when she looks outside, she sees a man standing outside with a knife, ready to rob her as soon as she comes outside. So he's credited with saving her life. So what she does, she immediately retreats back to the office, picks up the phone, calls the police, come out, arrest the guy. But William's credit was saving her life, because if she was just kind of in the zone, working, doing her own thing, and just, okay, I can go home now, she was walked outside, who knows what would have happened.
That's like having a guardian angel.
Exactly. And that was William trying to save her life.
Wow. So what experiences have some of the people that have gone on your tours?
One thing that happens almost all the time, the very last stop on the tour is Molly's Pub, which is a little bit up Main Street. I want to say I walk it all the time. I want to say it's like the 500 block of Main Street. I may be off, but that's close. Anytime somebody rents out an EMF detector, one thing that's really nice about U.S. Ghost Adventures, people can rent an EMF detector if they want to. I don't think it's that much, like another $5 or something like that.
What's an EMF detector?
It senses electromagnetic fields, and that a lot of people say that can indicate the presence of a ghost or paranormal activity. So people rent one out. When we go to this one stop, it has different light, like green and then amber and then red. It's like 5 or 6 lights, and the closer it gets to red means the more activity there is there. We get there, it goes red. If somebody rents one, it's red every time, without fail. And just a lot of the stories I've heard there from the bartenders that work there and the stories that we were told with the script are just like, wow. I mean, there's definitely something going on.
What are some of the stories? I'll
be glad to tell you. There is a jukebox that requires money to operate. It's been known to start playing music by itself. There is a lady with a blue dress that they have seen go up the stairs, and there's only one way.
They can see them in color.
Yeah,
they're not transparent.
Yeah, there's only one way in and out of this bar. There is only one. So they see somebody go upstairs, and this looks like a normal person, and so it's like, okay, well, it's time to go. Somebody go upstairs and see what's up with the lady with the blue dress. We're getting ready to go. And they don't see, it's like Scotty beamed around the building. But one thing that's ironic is they find a pint of Guinness in the ladies' room.
Interesting.
Now, the bartenders are reported seeing her on more than one occasion. I'm not sure exactly how she's tied in to that location. Another thing that really was kind of, I want to talk about this in one other stop before we go. Okay, anyway, there was a lady who was a manager, and this bar, I don't know exactly when they open. I'm assuming they open at 4 or 5 o'clock when people start getting off work, so people can come in and unwind or get a drink before they go home. So a manager was coming in, I'm guessing, shortly after lunch. And so she goes to open the door. And this bar there's some translucent barriers in there that say Solanche on them between all the booths. Solanche, my understanding in Irish, means cheers or bottoms up or something along in those lines. Because it was an Irish bar. One reason we believe it's haunted is a lot of the furniture actually came over from Ireland. The working theory is when they brought the furniture over, they brought something with the furniture, is the working theory. So this manager goes to open the bar up shortly after lunch, and she sees something behind one of those translucent barriers. She's like, man, I just walked in here in the middle of a burglary. There ain't nothing in here worth me losing my life over. So she starts backing up. While she's backing up, all of a sudden, a white orb flies by her face. And then whatever was behind that translucent barrier disappeared. So at this point, due to all the other paranormal activity, they had security cameras in that place out the wazoo. So they go roll back, play the security cameras back, and guess what? They see a white orb fly right by this lady's face, and whatever was behind that translucent barrier was gone. Another thing that also happens there is they have these very heavy light fixtures that look like they weigh a few hundred pounds, okay? They've been known to start swaying on their own.
Wow.
Yeah.
So orbs, you mentioned orbs. I never thought about orbs. So orbs are important too.
My understanding is that can also indicate presence of paranormal activity. I can tell you when my wife and I were at the Muertos, she took a picture of me sitting on the front porch, and there were like 2 or 3 orbs just around my feet or buzzing around my head. So again, I think there's something there we don't fully understand, but
yeah,
there's definitely something there. What that something is, I don't know.
Yeah, so they're not manifesting themselves completely. They're just a little orb.
One of the most chilling stories, and almost every time I tell this story, I get a chill up my spine, is that one of the hotels that is on the shore, right near the intersection of Congress and Main. And as we get there, it used to be a bank, but it's a hotel now. And one reason why we believe this place is haunted is back when it was a bank, during the Great Depression, a lot of people committed suicide there.
Oh, wow.
Okay, they literally jumped off the building. It's like a 10 or 12 story building. It is sad. And people tragically felt they had no other option. And so a lot of people, we've been told, have committed suicide there. One of the more alarming stories there, at least in my opinion, is a husband and wife were staying there. And the husband wakes up like 2 or 3 in the morning because he hears the water running in the bathroom. And he's thinking, okay, I must have turned the water off. So he goes up there and he opens up the bathroom door and he sees a ghost literally standing there at the bathroom sink. He is like, wow.
I think I would have passed out if I saw something like that.
So all of a sudden, the next thing he knows, he's sitting up in bed like anybody else would be. Okay?
Right.
And so he wakes his wife up, and his wife is like, hey, what happened? He says, well, I don't, he starts describing what happened. He said, I must have had a dream. I mean, I don't know. And he just starts describing everything that's happened. And his wife's like, no, you didn't have a dream. I just had the same dream. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I think the locations we go to, there's definitely something there. I don't know what that something is. I'm not qualified to say what that something is, but I think it's safe to say there's still questions that we don't have answers to.
Yeah. That's true. I had an experience myself, but I didn't see anything. I went to Marfa, Texas, where the Marfa lights are, this phenomenon. And so it was incredible. But anyway, stayed in this historic hotel called the Olympia. And I was put in an area where I was the only one that had a room in that area. And so I got into bed, turned off the light, and then I realized I hadn't closed the closet door. So I went in, closed the closet door, and went back to bed, turned off the light, and the closet door opens. And this happens to me like a couple of times. And I'm like, I'm too tired to be dealing with you if you are here, whoever you are. I said, I'm just going to leave the light on if that's what you want. So I left the light on, went to sleep, and nothing else happened. the door stayed open. So I think there must have been somebody there. And so I went the next morning to ask the front desk if anything strange, ghostly kind of things happened at the hotel. And the lady there said, well, what happened to you? And then she started telling me stories that other people had experienced. And she pulled out like a journal and she said, write down your experience. And she had a list of people who had experienced different things.
One thing I really enjoyed doing also is pointing out some of the historical sites during the tour. Literally just across the street from Market Square, it's obviously not there anymore. There used to be a round tent saloon where all the members of the legislature would meet after they were done at the legislature again when we were the Capitol, and all the lobbyists would descend upon there trying to get the various members of the legislature either vote for or against different pieces of legislation, depending on which side of the fence they were working. And what I tell a lot of the guests is like, well, hey, it's hard to imagine. Here we are almost 170 years, not much has changed as far as lobbyists.
Yeah.
And we get to walk by one of there's no paranormal activity associated with this stop, but there's one location that we get to literally walk by where the White House was when Houston was the capital. It's literally right on the tour. And so I make a point of pointing that out. And
are there tours outside of the Market Square?
There are tours. U.S. Ghost Adventures is a nationwide organization. There's tours everywhere. I did not know this when I married my wife, but they literally have a tour in Honolulu, Hawaii. They're literally all over the country.
Wow.
And so I actually had a chance to go on a tour in Honolulu, but I didn't know this before I was working with them, but it was one of their tours in Honolulu. They also own the Lizzie Borden House in Massachusetts, and you can actually spend the night. That's amazing. You can actually spend the night there if you want to. I don't know if
no, I don't think so.
You can if you want to.
Yeah. So. Well, I understand they also have some hotels, old homes where people can stay.
The one that I'm familiar with is Lizzie Borden House, or maybe others I'm not familiar with, but that's the one I am familiar with.
Yeah, like you said, what I know is that they have ghost tours all around the country.
Yeah, I was at work. I was traveling to Seattle, and I was able to take the tour in Seattle they had. So yeah, they're literally all over the country.
Yeah.
And also,
I go to in Seattle too.
Yeah. Again, I live in Houston. Galveston's maybe about 70, 80 miles from me. They also have one in Galveston. I've been on it. It's really a great organization, and they've literally very well ran, and they've got a lot of good information, very interesting tours.
So did you get to see the face on the wall in Galveston?
Yes.
So it's real. I've never seen it.
It's kind of, supposedly they've pressure washed it a number of times. It just keeps coming back.
That's what I've heard. Heaven knows, I don't know who it is, but it's been there for many years.
I don't recall. I don't run that tour, but it's wow.
Yeah. Do you know if the Spaghetti Warehouse, well, it used to be called the Spaghetti Warehouse. When I went there, I don't know if it's still there or not, but
it is, but under a different name. It's called McAllister's today. What happened is the Spaghetti Warehouse flooded a few too many times. The last time it flooded during Hurricane Harvey back in 2017, People's Spaghetti Warehouse just very respectfully said, okay, this place is flooded one too many times. We're done.
Yeah. And it was a beautiful place. The wood there was just incredible.
It's very ornate.
Yeah. I had a friend who was a chef, and he worked there in the kitchen, of course. And so he would tell me stories of different apparitions after the restaurant would close.
Well, what we know is that is another stop on the tour. And what we've been told is there was a pharmacist who, him and his wife were very much in love, very devoted to each other. And this is in the very early 1900s. And quite often he would have to work late. And so there became an area of contention between him and his wife, saying, hey, I married you to spend time with you. I didn't marry you to have you come home at 8, 9, 10 p.m. and just fall asleep. And so they had a compromise. And he said, okay, tell you what, no matter how busy I am, no matter what's going on, even if I have to go back to work, I will come home and I'll have dinner with you every night. So from that day forward, the pharmacist went home to his wife and they had dinner every night. Tragically, one day the pharmacist did not come home. And so the wife waited for a while. Now, granted, telephones had been invented, but they'd just been invented. Only the rich people could afford them. The best analogy I could give would be, I would assume it'd be like having a cell phone back in the 1980s when they first came out. Nobody could afford them unless you were really rich. So the wife waited for a little while, and then she decided to retrace his steps or his path, and she ended up showing back up at the spaghetti warehouse. A large crowd had surrounded the building, and tragically, he had passed away. What happened is he was on the top floor. He was about to come down in the elevator, and he wasn't paying attention. The elevator doors opened, but the car wasn't there. He stepped into the empty shaft and fell to his death and broke his neck tragically and died, what we believe died instantly. Now, people have reported seeing an apparition of a man with a disjointed neck if they go in the bathroom and seeing this apparition in the mirror. Also, there is an armoire that was in an orphanage prior to it ending up there in the spaghetti warehouse. Spaghetti warehouse was kind of like Cracker Barrel or Fridays, had a bunch of little knickknacks everywhere. And this armoire was at an orphanage before it ended up there. Now, this orphanage, to make it even more eerie, this armoire stored cremains of orphans who had been cremated. Now, it's been reported, this armoire was up on the top floor of the spaghetti warehouse. Now, it's been reported that people were hearing balls bouncing, children playing. I've actually had people on the tour that said, yes, I ate there, and they were eating their dinner and felt like somebody poked them or pinched them. They turned around, nobody was there. I heard that from one person. So there's a lot of activity there also.
I went there several times and nothing happened to me. They would tell me that there was a lady also that would come down the stairs.
Yeah, one of the other tour guides who works for us after it became McAllister's went in to ask the manager at McAllister's, hey, this is a stop on a ghost tour. Is there anything still happening here? And his response, no, we don't talk about that.
Oh, of course not. But I'm sure it's interesting things happening.
I don't know if he's just trying to keep try to keep running customers off. I'm not sure, but at any rate.
Yeah. So Jeff, where can we get tickets to go on these ghostly tours?
Well, you can go on usghostadventures.com, or if you want to, their phone number is area code 816-722-7363, and you can just do a drop-down menu, and you can run an EMF detector if you want. Some people, they have little plushies, what we call them plushies, like a little bitty stuffed ghost. Some people decide to get for the tour. They can have some to take home with them. The people are free to take as many still pictures as they want during the tour. Sometimes I haven't had anybody email me back and say they found anything, but we do encourage the people that do find anything to go ahead and email it in to US Ghost Adventures, and they have their email address. So we do encourage them to do that.
Yeah. And if you want more information, because they have so much going on, like I said, throughout the country, you can get as much information.
Tours all over the country. And I would really, anytime if you're going to be traveling, even if you're going to be out of town, look up and see if they have a tour and take an hour and a half and go check it out.
Well,
you'll also probably learn a lot about that city's history at the same time.
Yeah. Take a different type of vacation, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And learn at the same time.
Yes, ma'am.
And who knows? I mean, that ghostly apparition, you might be able to see it, you might be able to feel it, or who knows, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So you do believe in these ghostly apparitions then?
I believe there's something there that we just don't know all the information to. And I will freely admit that. Whether it's a ghost, hard to say, but there's definitely something there we don't have all the answers to. There's just too many reports of too many activities, too many occurrences to say there's nothing there.
Right, right. And also what I think is that maybe there's this invisible wall that we can't see. And so we're walking together, but you don't know that somebody's there next to you because you can't see them.
Exactly.
But for those people that have seen somebody, how lucky are they?
That's true. That's true. But like I
said,
every time,
maybe even talk to them.
Every time we go to Molly's Pub, which is the last stop on the regular tour, the EMF detector goes red every time without fail. Every time.
Yeah. Well, Houston, like you mentioned earlier, has a very long history. And so there's no reason why we wouldn't experience some of these apparitions or something different around Houston, whether the original buildings are still there or not.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for joining me and
thank you
for giving me these great stories.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Great stories. You've been fantastic.
Well, thank you so much. I hope you have a good day. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, and I wish you many more great tours.
Thank you.
And that you actually get to see an apparition. I don't know if you want to or not, but
be careful what you look for.
Well, let me know if you do. And of course, I thank you all as well for joining me. And please send me your comments or Send me your ghostly experiences or stories.
Okay.
And if you have any story ideas, please let me know.
Okay.
And have a ghoulish Halloween, and enjoy all the very colorful festivities for the Day of the Dead, and honor your ancestors.
I wish you the same, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.